Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm David Reichard. Today we're going to take a used soda bottle and make a nice lamp and turn an ordinary item into an extraordinary item. We're going to begin by washing the soda bottle very good with mild detergent, dishwashing liquid, whatever. Dry it well. Get as much water off as you can because we don't want it to affect the acetone we're going to put on to remove the label. The acetone takes off this kind of label because it's not really a stick-on label like a regular label you would find on something you buy in a home goods store is. And it'll take off that laser date on the bottom. I'm assuming that's how they put it on. Let it sit for a second. Wear gloves. I forgot the gloves naturally. I do that a lot. You'll notice a lot of paint under my fingernails and on my hands. And give it a little rinse. I don't know if acetone will affect clay or not, but better safe than sorry. You're also, once it's dry completely for a good 24 hours, I would let it dry completely. You're going to wash the outside of the bottle with alcohol so that your clay sticks. I also wash my fingers with alcohol. I put it in a spray bottle and just spray my hands. That way I've got the oil cut down on my fingers because you're still going to have oil, but not as much. It will affect how the clay sticks. And I'm going to pick a color of clay I want for the inside. Like, I don't know what you would call it. We're going to put a coat on him and we're going to have, I guess, a shirt, a long shirt, I don't know. Maybe a robe. I don't know what you would call that. I'm going to say robe with a jacket. And then I decided to put shoes on him. It's your choice whether you want to put shoes on or not. I will tell you, usually to make shoes, I would roll out 2 balls, give them, mash them down a little, stick the bottle onto the edge of it, and give it a little mash down, and that will make your shoes. But I'm going to do it this way because I want it to stick. If you do just little balls, you need to glue them on, because if you don't, they're going to pop off. I had that happen with one of the bottles that you'll see towards the end, where I didn't. The only thing I put at the bottom was shoes. I didn't put any robe or anything that far down. You can make your bottle however you want. But I did bake them. Then they popped off because as they start cooling, they're going to shrink back down and pop loose. Just super glue them back on. You can super glue before you bake or after. It does not matter. Makes no difference. It doesn't hurt it either way. And now we're going to go back and add this. I'm going to call this a tunic. No, not a tunic. I don't know if that's a tunic or not. Undershirt. And I've cut it around the shoes. You could put it on before you put the shoes, or you can put the shoes and then cut around it. I cut around it because I don't want to waste all that clay. Clay's not cheap. So to keep from wasting so much, I will cut it down where I can and not have it overlap where I can. You're also going to take your stylus. There's clay tools you can buy. You see a whole jar there. I bought 2 separate sets from Amazon. And then when I ordered clay, more plastic ones came. I didn't pull those out to use, but some of them have some pretty nice little, oh shoot, the tips where you make patterns that you can put into your clay. You'll see me use those towards the end. I usually try to get it put together first because it's going to be full of fingerprints. And the only way you can keep from getting fingerprints is to put it on, bake it and then go to your next step. And that's a lot of trouble to me. I prefer baking the whole thing at one time if I can. Now I'm going to start measuring this little jacket. And I've actually made it, I doubled the jacket. I cut that in half and I went in and made it taller because I wanted it to come up to that ridge. I don't know how I missed it, but if I cut it out, it was probably off camera anyway. So this is my first time doing a video, so I'm not that great at staying in camera. But bear with me and we'll get there. And your goal here is to press it into the clay that's already there. You want it to attach, but don't like mash the far out of it, because like there I want it to be able to peel back so I can trim it down. Sometimes I'll give my jackets a flowy look and I don't want it to be flat. If you're doing a skirt on a GNOME and you want it to be say 1950s, the poodle skirt style, where it's kind of fluffed out, you know, you don't want to mash it down flat to it. You want to give it a look like there's actually, like it's a thin piece of cloth and not a big lump of clay. You'll notice my tools I use most are the pokey tool there and the X-Acto knife. I use it more for cutting clay than anything else. To me, it's easier. And I'm going to come back to that ridge on the bottle, and I'm going to go completely around and cut it all the way, everything off above that ridge, because I'm not going to use the clay. You're going to have a hat there, and if you put there's going to be hair there, and then there's going to be a hat, and if you keep that clay there, you're just wasting clay. To get my clay flat, I'm also using a pasta machine. Usually I run it through on a number 1, which is the thickest setting, and then I thin it out to wherever I want it to be, usually 5 or 6 if I'm putting it on a bottle. Because you don't need a lot of clay. It's going to stick to the bottle. The bottle is your base, and it's stout, and it's not going anywhere. So there's no need in wasting clay. You don't need that clay to hold up for anything. Just to stick to it, it's going to give you the look. Whereas the bottle's going to give you the scaffolding, for a better word, for lack of a better word. I will point out to you that I have overworked this white. In a minute, you'll be able to tell when you see it sticking to my fingers. For some reason, the lighter the clay, the easier it is to overwork it. And once you do, it kind of turns to mush. This is going to be his hair. It won't be as, there's not going to be as much hair there as you think. I like to put more because my fingers are huge, my hands are huge. So I'll put it in, I will take the pokey tool and I'll draw it down and make the hair. And then where I've got it, when I've got it where I want it, I will take the X-Acto knife and go back and cut it down and just leave a thin strip. And I'm getting ready to cut out for the nose after I cut down the sides. And then I realized that I have went out of order and not made a nose. So then we have to go back and make a nose. So in my head, there's a certain way to make it. So sometimes I get myself lost. No nose. Where's it at? So to make the nose, I'm going to use this styrofoam ball. And of course it's round, so we gotta see if it's hot. I love this knife. And it's gonna go right through it like butter. Just don't stick your finger to it. And baking this in the oven, because it's going to be enclosed in clay, will not hurt anything. Even if it shrinks down, the clay is already, by the time it does, the clay is already took shape. And it won't be noticeable. I would have got the pasta machine in the shot, but it is attached to my desk on the end, and if I move it, it's never going to reattach the right way again, so I don't want to move it if I don't have to. Eventually I will have a better table to work on. I'm rolling out the fingerprints. You do not have to put hard pressure on it, just barely roll over it. When you're putting two edges of clay together, medium pressure. You don't have to mash it like really hard, or you're going to mash it down to the glass and have clay squeezed out everywhere and be sick of it in 2 seconds and have the bottle thrown in the trash. Yeah. Another thing is, if the clay, when it meets, you don't have to worry about gluing it because the bottle has concave sides, so it's going to lock it in place. It will never slide off. And that gave me an idea of actually making a clay candle holder or something to see if it would slide off of a straight bottle. I may try that here shortly in another video. But if you use a straight bottle, you can still use a straight bottle, just a little super glue. I use the Gorilla Glue gel super glue. I love it. But as long as it's going around and locking together, it's going to stay on that bottle. It will not slide off. If it was a convex bottle, I would glue it as well. I have an ornament that's done using clay to make seaweed and fish, and it's an undersea scene, but I had to glue everything there because it would have fell off. I'll do a video on that one in a few weeks as well, because it turned out really well. I was quite impressed myself. And the one good thing about clay is if you mess it up, just re-roll it out and do it again. It doesn't matter. You know, until you're happy with it. And honestly, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like another crafter said when I was watching another video, we're not machines. And I'm definitely not a machine. And here's where we start putting the lines in. Moderate pressure, not really hard. Depending if you want your tips of your mustache to stick up and swirl around. But I've overworked this to the point where I can't make it do that. I try in a minute, you'll see it does not. I mean, it will to a point, but it's not gonna really do it well. I have some gnomes that have beards that are just curled at the bottom, and they have a curl there. I couldn't get this one to curl. Nah, I've already overworked it. But I'm going to tell you now, I'm not wasting anything. Even if it is overworked, it's going to get baked just like it is. You'll notice the edges flapping a little. When I put down the beard, I don't want the edges flap down yet because I may want them to curl out a little, or I may not. I haven't got to the point where I decided. Sometimes you may have an idea, but when you begin putting the clay on, it shows you how it wants to be, and sometimes it looks better the way it wants to be rather than the idea you have. So, not always. Just keep in mind when you're making something, you may have an idea for how you want it, and when you get started, you may decide to go in a whole nother direction. Go with it. On the first pass, I'm cutting in the hair. And then on my second pass, I will pull the hair down onto the robe. We're gonna go for the arms now. You can make just solid clay arms, or you can roll it out like I did and roll it around bamboo skewers and make them that way. One of the reasons I do it this way is because I want that clay to be less than 1/4 of an inch thick, because it all bakes. It's 15 minutes per 1/4 of an inch, so I want it to bake all at the same time. I had one once that I made, and it didn't. It was thicker in some places, and it didn't bake right. So when I tried to get it off the tile, it distorted. Also, let it wait 24 hours before you touch it. The clay is not completely cured for 24 hours. And I didn't wait that long because I'm impatient. So I ended up with a very distorted ornament. Not that it's not going on my tree anyway, because I took the time to make it, and I certainly wasn't going to throw it away. And I'm going to tell you now that anytime I make something, what is it, asymmetrical, where both sides are the same, they're never the same, ever. One hand is always bigger than the other one. One foot is always bigger than the other one. And it doesn't matter what it is. I've always got one side bigger than the other one. So, I just go with it. I tried weighing the clay, making sure I had the same amount on both sides. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. And it's up to you whether you want a thumb, whether you want it to look like mittens, or just a round ball. It does not matter. Your preference. If you want to cut out 5 fingers, help yourself. I am not doing that. I know better than to do that. If you look at that piece of yellow on that tile there, you'll notice I cut out where I made the other arm because it looked so huge and looked like a lobster claw. So I cut it plumb out so you couldn't even see that mess I made. And I remade it. Because it would have just been a waste of 15 minutes of our life to watch it over. And I'm getting ready to make the hat. I found these cutouts at Hobby Lobby. Yeah, Hobby Lobby. In the clay section. And I grabbed them. And I liked them. So, when we get to that point, I'll show you. It looks like miniature cookie cutters. You want to make sure, if you do it in 2 pieces, you want to make sure it at least goes around halfway on both, for both pieces. And you want it to come down and touch your nose. And you'll notice some of that has crinkles in it, and sometimes I try to put the crinkles in before I bake it, and sometimes after. Once it's set to the bottle, it don't want to really come off. You could bake those hearts, and then you could have them to glue on another project if you wanted to save those instead of taking them back up like I did. And you want to lay it gently on there. Try not to pull the clay too much because you don't want to distort your hearts. And it's up to you if you want to bring it over the top or not. I like to cover as much of the bottle as I can at the top because I'm going to make a ball cap to go into the top of it. And where the 2 pieces meet, you want to roll it down with the stylus. I don't know how I cut that out, but you'll notice there's swirls on that cap. And that's where I just rolled it out by hand on those tiles and then just stuck it to it and made swirls and straight lines around it. Kind of like a vine. Now I'm going to cut out stars and put on it. My editing is not that great. But this is the first video I've ever done, so it isn't bad considering. I was kind of intimidated by it till I got started. I find those knives easier to help pick that stuff up than some things. The X-Acto knife wouldn't let me pick it up. It kept wanting to pull the stars apart. But if you take those big knives there, they kind of, you can curve them. And then you just kind of slide them side to side and it'll pick it right up. And I'm going to make a dent in the top of the bottle, and of course, I would do it off the screen where you can't see it. But the reason I made that dent was to put the string of lights in. There it is. I didn't get it completely out of camera, did I? Okay. There's my dent. And there's the bottle. We're going to bake it. Follow your manufacturer's directions, but I bake mine at 275 for 20 minutes. Cover it with tin foil. You'll notice I've already got tin foil that's folded up to hold the bottles. I've got them fixed where they'll go around, certain parts of the bottle. And it'll hold it without letting it roll. Cover it with tin foil. I mess up because even though I've covered it with tin foil, I didn't make it, you want it to tint like you would tint a turkey. You don't want it to touch it. And you'll notice on this sucker, whenever I turn him down, see the burn on the side of his nose there? Yeah, that's where the tin foil touched. But I took a little emery board and I just went right across it and faded it. Alright. These are some battery operated fairy lights I got from Amazon. I think there was a pack of 24. And it wasn't $12, I think it was. If that. It may have been a sale on, I can't remember. But it wasn't much. Put your lights in. Now I just hang mine off the back. But I did find this E6000 glue dot maker stuff that I'm going to try. And I'm going to make a glue dot for the back of it to put that on. Or you could glue it to it. But frankly, I just want it where I can take the lights out and change them out if something happens to them. I don't have to unglue and pry stuff loose. And if it's a bad string, I just want to be able to pull them out and throw them away. Alright, now we're going to go to make the stopper for the bottle. And I usually make tin foil. So most of my gnomes I make with tin foil if they're not light up. And of course I'm off camera. You want to make just a big enough plug to go at the top of that bottle so it doesn't fall off. I've made some with a very small plug. It's not very long, 1/4 of an inch. Then I cover it with tape. Same way I do my regular gnome ornaments. Then cover it with clay completely. And then I've baked it and popped it in there. And skipped where I put it in there. Isn't that something? I'm going to show you a few more gnomes I've done. This is the one we just did. Isn't that just cute? And here's another one I did. He's got a stick with a little ball on the end. He's got a hummingbird on his hat and a heart on his hat. That was from those cookie cutter sets from Hobby Lobby. This is the one where the feet fell off because they're are only on the front there. And after I baked him and pulled him out of the oven, he knocked right off. See how I distorted that heart in the middle? I pulled it too much. And then this one is a Santa Claus gnome. I was kind of proud of him. I liked his color because he's not a bright red. He's like a burgundy red. But there's your gnome in a bottle, or gnome lamp. I hope you. And I cut out the part where you use a toothbrush to put pattern in your gnome clothes. But this is the one I made that is convex, and I had to glue all these pieces on because they would have fell off because it's a rounded surface. And we'll do this in a future video. Thank you. Have a blessed night.